Good morning, dear students. Our next topic that is dealing with this electronic spectra. So far we have discussed rotational spectra, then vibrational spectra as a result of the absorption of radiation from IR region, isn't it? So here we are dealing with the electronic spectra. That means the radiation which is absorbing, it will be corresponding to the UV visible region. Okay, the radiations will be absorbing from the UV visible region. So as a result of the absorption from the UV visible region, what happens? The excitation of the electrons will be taking place. Okay, excitation of the electrons takes place, and as a result what happens? The electrons will be in the ground state in the initial stage, and what happens? By the absorption of radiation from the UV visible region, it will be excited to the higher energy state, or we can call it as the excited state. Okay, so as a result of the absorption from the UV or visible region, the electrons will be excited from ground state to the next higher energy level. Okay, so as a result of this absorption, what happens? A spectrum will be resulting, and this spectrum, it is called as the electronic spectrum, or otherwise it is called as UV visible spectrum. Okay, so the important points to be noted down is that the absorption will be from UV visible region, and the excitation of the electrons takes place. Okay. And also here what happens is that, see, while during this electronic excitation, what other transitions will be accompanying along with electronic transitions? There will be rotational transitions, isn't it? There will be rotational transitions, vibrational transitions along with this electronic transitions. Okay, all these transitions will be accompanying this electronic transitions. We have already studied, isn't it? So while dealing with electronic excitations, there will be rotational transitions, along with that vibrational transitions will be there. Okay, so suppose if the energy corresponding to the electronic transition, suppose the energy corresponding to the ground state for an energy corresponding to the electronic state, that is E electronic, we can represent it as E electronic, and before excitation we can write it as E electronic. Okay, then correspondingly the energy corresponding to the vibrational level, that is E vibrational, and the energy corresponding to rotational is E rotational, that is before transition. Okay, so these are the energies of the various ground states before transition. Okay, so after electronic excitation or after transition, what happens is that the energies will be changing, isn't it? So correspondingly we can write it as E dash electronic, then E dash vibrational, then E dash rotational. Okay, so these are all the energies after transition. These are the energies after transition. Okay, so from this we can calculate the energy change between the transitions, isn't it? The energy changes before and after transition. What much energy change is there after transition? Okay, so for that we can write it as the difference. Difference in energies, we can write it as delta E. Okay, so delta E is equal to the difference between the electronic energies. Okay, so E electronic minus E dash electronic, that is the first energy change within the electronic transition, plus then what about the next energy difference, that is the vibrational energy level. So E vibrational minus E dash vibrational, isn't it? The total energy will be the sum of all these, isn't it? The difference between each transitions and the sum of all these, plus E rotational minus E dash rotational. Okay, E dash rotational. So the sum of the differences between these three gives the total energy change. Okay, so therefore we can write it as delta E is equal to, how we can write that is E electronic minus E dash electronic, that we can write it as delta E electronic, isn't it? Delta E electronic plus, what about this case, delta E vibrational, E vibrational minus E dash vibrational, it will be delta E vibrational, the change in vibrational energies, plus the difference between the rotational energy at the ground state and the rotational energy at the excited state, that we can write it as delta E rotational. Okay, so that gives the energy change involved within that particular molecule. Okay, so normally the wave number we will be writing for a transition, wave number for a transition. Wave number, it is denoted by the nu bar, isn't it? So nu bar is equal to, what is the formula? Delta E by Hc, isn't it? E by Hc, here it is delta E by Hc. Nu bar is equal to delta E by Hc. So we can divide this term by Hc in terms of wave number, isn't it? So nu bar is equal to delta E electronic plus delta E electronic plus delta E vibrational plus delta E rotational divided by Hc. Okay, so this gives the wave number of that particular transition, nu bar. Okay, nu bar is equal to so and so. Hope you are clear with this. Then the next is one of the principle which is applied here in this electronic spectra, that is the Franck-Condon principle. It is very important. F-R-A-N-C-K, Franck-Condon principle, C-O-N-D-O-N, Franck-Condon principle. So this principle is also employed in this electronic spectra. This Franck-Condon principle states that during an electronic transition, what happens is that the internuclear distance remains unaltered. During an electronic transition, the internuclear distance remains unaltered or unchanged. What do you mean by internuclear distance? That internuclear distance means it is the radius of a particular atom or a molecule, whatever it is. So this internuclear distance remains unchanged or remains constant during an electronic transition, at the time of an electronic transition. So that is the Franck-Condon principle. The internuclear distance remains unaltered during an electronic transition. And also when according to Franck-Condon principle, what happens is that the transitions, the internuclear distance, it is not changing. That means the radius between the two atoms, it is not changing, isn't it? The radius of that particular species, it will not be changing. Without changing the radius, what happens? That particular molecule is excited, or the electronic excitation is taking place. So the electronic excitation is more faster while comparing with the change in internuclear distance, so that the internuclear distance is not changing. Okay, and also see here one more point to be noted down is that when a photon falls on a molecule, what happens? Some of the energy will be absorbed. And also according to Franck-Condon principle, the most probable transition, or the transition, will be happening from V is equal to 0 to V is equal to 2. Okay, according to Franck-Condon principle, this transition will be taking place from V is equal to 0 to V is equal to 2. Okay, and also there is a diagram in your textbook showing this transition from V is equal to 0 to V is equal to 2, and here in the x-axis it is the internuclear distance R, and in the y-axis it corresponds to the potential energy of that particular molecule. Okay, y-axis potential energy, x-axis the internuclear distance, and also this is the energy curve for a molecule. It will be like this. So this is a molecule in the ground state. So it will be having so many number of vibrational energy levels. Okay. So many energy levels are there. So let it be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Then again, while it is excited to a higher energy state, what happens? It will be moving to the next higher excitational energy level. So these two are the different electronic energy levels. Okay, so this is the ground state electronic energy level, and this is the excited state electronic energy level. So there also you have to mark different energy levels in the excited state. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so ground state excitation and ground state electronic level and the excited state electronic energy level. So here, according to Frank-Condon principle, the transition, it is from V is equal to 0 to V is equal to 2. So here the transition, this is V is equal to 0, the transition to V is equal to 2. Okay, only this type of transition is possible. Okay, hope you are clear with this Frank-Condon principle. Then the next topic, that is the electronic spectra of polyatomic molecules. Electronic spectra of polyatomic molecules. See here, the electronic spectra of polyatomic molecules, it will be in the range 200 to 800 nanometer. Okay, the spectra will be occurring in this range 200 to 800 nanometer. And also this electronic, here also in the case of polyatomic molecules, the absorption, it is from which regions? It is from the UV visible regions. UV visible regions. Absorption will be taking place from the UV visible regions. Okay, and also here in the case of electronic transitions, there are so many energy levels. Okay, and also see, while we are considering the case of a molecule, the molecule will be having sigma bonding, sigma bonded electron, a pi bonded electron, as well as a non-bonded electrons are there, isn't it? Sigma bonds will be there, pi bonds will be there, and some electrons will not be taking part in the bond formation, isn't it? So therefore we can classify them as sigma electrons, pi electrons, and non-bonding electrons. So based on these different bonding, we can classify them into different energy levels also. Okay, different energy levels based on this bonding. That means the different energy levels are the bonding energy level. Okay, for the energies of the different molecular orbitals. Sometimes you have studied in your +2 classes MO diagram, isn't it? Molecular orbital energy level diagram, isn't it? There you have studied bonding molecular orbitals and anti-bonding molecular orbitals, BMO and ABMO, bonding molecular orbitals and anti-bonding molecular orbitals. That is, we will be representing it as sigma and sigma star, isn't it? Anti-bondings will be represented by star and bonding by sigma. Okay, bonding molecular orbital and anti-bonding molecular orbital. Here also this sigma, again it is having two types of molecular orbitals, bonding and anti-bonding. Pi also will be having bonding and anti-bonding, and there will be one non-bonding electron. Okay, non-bonding molecular orbital. Okay, or non-bonding energy level. So sigma will be having sigma and sigma star, two energy levels. Pi also will be having two types of energy levels, pi and pi star. Okay, pi and pi star. Star represents the anti-bonding. Then comes N, that is the non-bonding orbital. Okay, non-bonding orbital. So based on the, so in total there will be 5 energy levels, isn't it? Sigma, sigma star, pi, pi star, and N. Okay, so these different molecular orbitals, they are arranged in the order of increasing order of energy, and the one with the lowest energy, that is the sigma bonding molecular orbital. Okay, so this is the sigma bonding molecular orbital. Then comes the pi bonding molecular orbital. Pi bonding molecular orbital. This is the sigma bonding molecular orbital. This is the pi bonding molecular orbital. Then comes the non-bonding molecular orbital. Non-bonding, represented by the letter N. Non-bonding molecular orbital. Then comes the anti-bonding, that is the pi anti-bonding molecular orbital. Pi anti-bonding molecular orbital. And then comes the sigma anti-bonding molecular orbital. So these are the different energy levels. So the lowest one, that is the sigma bonding molecular orbital. Then comes pi bonding, then non-bonding molecular orbital, then pi anti-bonding molecular orbital, then sigma anti-bonding molecular orbital. And the symbols I will be writing inside the bracket. That is sigma bonding molecular orbital. It is represented by sigma itself. Pi bonding, it is denoted by pi itself. Non-bonding, it is denoted by N itself. Then pi anti-bonding molecular orbital, it is represented by pi star. And sigma anti-bonding molecular orbital, it is denoted by sigma star. Okay, so these are the different molecular energy levels. Okay, and also now you have to see what all transitions are possible. Okay, so for organic compounds there will be sigma bonds, pi bonds, or sigma electrons will be there, pi electrons will be there, non-bonding electrons will be there. So naturally what happens, there will be so many transitions between these different energy levels, and this is the order of increasing energy. Okay, in this order energy is increasing. So the low energy energy level with lowest energy, that is the sigma bonding molecular orbital, and the highest energy, that is the sigma star anti-bonding molecular orbital, sigma anti-bonding molecular orbital, or sigma star. Okay, hope you are clear up to this. So sigma, pi, n, pi star and sigma star. Then we have to go through the different types of transitions as a result of the electronic excitation. So the first possible transition, that is from sigma to sigma star. So all these transitions will be occurring in organic compounds only. Okay, all these transitions will be occurring in organic compounds only. So the first transition, it is from sigma to sigma star. So here what happens is that, see, the transition from sigma bonding or molecular orbital to sigma star anti-bonding molecular orbital. So this is the first transition. And this, what about the energy required for this transition? See the difference, it will be having the maximum, it needs the maximum energy for the excitation, isn't it? Sigma to sigma star, the transition from sigma to sigma star, that means it requires this much energy, isn't it? It requires the highest amount of energy or the greatest amount of energy. So the energy required is very high for this transition. Energy required is very high for this transition. Very high for this transition. And also normally the absorption will be occurring in the vacuum UV region. Absorption will be occurring in the vacuum UV region, that is less than 150 nanometer. Less than 150 nanometer. So, and also here saturated hydrocarbons do not show absorption in the ordinary UV visible region, and hence these compounds are normally, that is the transition showing from sigma to sigma star transitions. The compound showing this particular transition, they are called as UV transparent compounds. They are called as UV transparent compounds because the saturated hydrocarbons do not show any absorption in the ordinary UV visible region. In the ordinary UV visible region, they will not be exhibiting any spectrum, or they will not be showing any absorption. The absorption will be taking place only in the vacuum UV region. Okay, so in the ordinary UV region, it will not be showing any absorption. Therefore, it is called as UV transparent compounds. Okay, so this is the first transition. Then comes the second transition, that is the N to sigma star transition. That is, it will be like this, the transition from N to sigma star transition. This is N to sigma star. So the next next transition, N to sigma star. See here, N represents the non-bonding electrons, isn't it? So you have to consider the elements having non-bonding electrons. That is, normally the electrons, non-bonding electrons will be present in oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, then halogen atoms, etc. These non-bonding electrons will be present. Okay, so in such type of compounds or in such elements, what happens? This N to sigma star transitions are possible. And also, see, compare these energies between these two, that is sigma to sigma star and N to sigma star. Which one requires maximum energy or greater energy? Sigma to sigma star, it is having more energy for excitation, but in the case of N to sigma star, less energy is required for the excitation. Okay, so that is also you have to note down. So the absorption corresponding to N to sigma star, that will be taking place in the ordinary UV visible region. Will takes place in the ordinary UV visible region because the energy required is less compared with energy required is less compared with sigma to sigma star, isn't it? Energy required for excitation is less compared with sigma to sigma star. Okay. And also some examples are also given. Normally methanol vapor, methanol means the formula is CH3OH. Methanol vapors, it will be showing an absorption at 183 nanometer. Then CH3Cl, it will be showing an absorption peak at 173 nanometer. See here, all these compounds, it is having a non-bonded electron, isn't it? Oxygen, it is having non-bonding electron. Chlorine is having non-bonding electron. Okay. So this is the second type of transition, N to sigma star. Then the third one, that is the N to pi star transition. N to pi star transition. See here, in this N to pi star transition, again, unsaturated compounds should be there. This N to pi star transitions will be taking place in the case of unsaturated compounds, and also it should be having oxygen, nitrogen, then sulfur, halogens, etc. Okay, that means in this case they will be having non-bonding electrons, and in the case of unsaturated compounds they will be having pi electrons, isn't it? So in such cases, this N to pi star, see, you have to draw the N to pi star transition, and this N to pi star, it is this particular transition, N to pi star. So very less amount of energy is required for this N to pi star while comparing with N to sigma star also, isn't it? The energy required is even less while comparing with that of N to sigma star. Okay. So that is N to pi star transition. So here in the case of aldehydes and ketones, they will be having C double bond O, isn't it? Aldehydes and ketones, they will be having C double bond O. So here the transitions will be for aldehydes and ketones, it will be showing absorption at 270 to 300 nanometer. Okay. And also for carbonyl compounds which are having single or double bonds, which are having alternate single or double bonds, for such carbonyl compounds, the transitions will be between 300 to 350 nanometer. The transitions will be between 300 to 350 nanometer. So this is the case of N to pi star transition. Then the next one, then the fourth case, that is the pi to pi star transitions. Pi to pi star. See, in the case of pi to pi star transition, it will be occurring in molecules having pi electrons. Here also, unsaturation is an essential factor for those compounds having an unsaturation. Unsaturation means it should have a double bond or a triple bond, isn't it? So for molecules having unsaturation, this type of transition is possible. See, pi to pi star means it will be, the transition will be like this, from pi to pi star. This is pi to pi star transition. Okay, pi to pi star transition. So here the transitions, the pi to pi star transitions will be occurring at 189 to 190 nanometer for aliphatic compounds. And in the case of aromatic compounds, the absorption will be between 200 to 210 nanometer for aromatic compounds. Okay, for aromatic it will be between 200 to 210 nanometer. So these are the different types of transitions or different electronic excitations possible in the case of organic compounds. This is very, very important. You have to study these transitions also. Then let us go through some of the terms involved in this electronic transitions. Okay, so the first term you have to study, that is the chromophore. What do you mean by the term chrome? Chrome means color, isn't it? So chromophore means those substances which gives color to a particular compound, that is called as the chromophore. Okay, due to the presence of some linkages, okay, due to the presence of some unsaturation, what happens, that due to the presence of some unsaturation, they will be giving color to that particular compound. So such type of compounds, such category of compounds, it is called as a chromophore. So any unsaturated group which produces absorption of light in the UV visible region. Any unsaturated group, okay, due to the presence of unsaturation, what happens, color will be there. So any unsaturated group which absorbs from the UV visible region and thereby giving color to that particular substance, it is called as a chromophore. So some of the examples for chromophore, or some of the unsaturated linkages which gives color to a particular substance, that is C double bond C. This is a double bonded group or an alkene part. Then C double bond O, a carbonyl linkage, C double bond O. Then an azo group, N double bond N. These are all this chromophores. That means they will be giving color to that particular compound. Okay, so this is one important term you have to study, chromophore. See these definitions, it might be asked in section A or section B usually. Okay, so please don't skip all these terms. So that is the case of chromophore. Then comes oxochrome. Not oxochrome. Just before that, I will be telling you what is red shift and blue shift. Okay, so the second term, that is red shift or bathochromic shift. Red shift or bathochromic shift. See, redshift means it is the shift of an absorption band to a longer wavelength region. Shift of an absorption band. Shift of an absorption band to a longer wavelength region. To a longer wavelength region. See, this shift takes place due to the presence of some of the substituents. Usually a group OH group, then NH2 group, amino group, Cl group, etc. If these groups are introduced in a particular compound, what happens? The shift will be towards the longer wavelength, or it will be a red shift or bathochromic shift. Okay, so if these groups are introduced in a particular compound, or else if we are changing the medium, change of medium, if any of these happen, what will occur? There will be red shift or bathochromic shift. That means to a longer wavelength region. Red is in the longer wavelength region, isn't it? So that is red shift or bathochromic shift. Then what about blue shift or hypsochromic shift? Third one, that is the blue shift or hypsochromic shift. Blue shift or hypsochromic shift. See, blue shift means just the reverse, that is the shift of an absorption band to a shorter wavelength side. Shift of absorption band to shorter wavelength side. To shorter wavelength side. Okay. So here also this blue shift we can introduce, that is blue shift can be done by a change of medium. Can be done by a change of medium and also by the removal of conjugation. Conjugation means alternate single and double bonds. If you are removing the double bonds present in a molecule, then the color change will be towards the blue side. Okay, so it is blue shift or hypsochromic shift. Then another term, that is oxochrome. Oxochrome means it is a substituent which we are adding to a chromophore. Okay, a substituent which we are adding to a chromophore, and also by the addition of this particular substituent, what happens? Red shift takes place, that is the shift towards the longer wavelength side takes place. So that is what is called as oxochrome. If we are adding a substituent to a chromophore and thereby the color changes to red region, then we can call it as an oxochrome. Okay. Then another term, that is lambda max. Lambda max, I think you know. Lambda max, it is the wavelength of an absorption maximum. Lambda is wavelength, isn't it? So lambda maximum is lambda max is wavelength of absorption maximum. Wavelength of absorption maximum. Then the next is hyperchromic effect. Hyperchromic effect. Hyperchromic effect means it is an effect leading to an increased absorption intensity. Hyperchromic means effect leading to an increased absorption intensity. Effect leading to increased absorption intensity, that is hyperchromic. Then the next that is the hypochromic. Hypochromic, then just opposite of hyperchromic. See here in your textbook, this increased, it is written as decreased. Okay, you have to correct it. Hyperchromic effect is increased absorption intensity, while hypochromic effect is the effect leading to decreased absorption intensity. Decreased absorption intensity. Okay, so these are some of the terms involved in this. And also see one problem is there given in your textbook. It is a very simple problem. I just mention you. Which of the following will have large lambda maximum in UV spectrum? See, one benzene ring, CH, double bond CH, then C6H5. Or the second compound is C6H5, CH, double bond CH, single bond CH, double bond CH, then C6H5. So which one will be having larger lambda maximum? That is the question. See here, in one case, only one double bond is present, isn't it? Conjugation is present only at this position. But in this case, there are two conjugations, two alternate double and single and double bonds are present, isn't it? So we can say that as the extent of conjugation increases, the lambda maximum value also increase. So the extent of conjugation, it is greater in the case of the second one than in the case of first one. Okay, so lambda maximum is greater for second one. Okay, so just a simple problem. So this chapter is over. Then now we have to go through spectroscopy 2. There you have to study Raman spectra, then Raman spectra and NMR spectra, I think. Okay, two spectra are there, you have to study. That we can discuss in our next session. Okay, thank you.